There we go. Okay. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Typical Skeptic podcast. I'm really excited about my guest today. And for those of you watching on Rumble, this will probably be on YouTube too. I just want to make sure if we say anything, we need to edit it out for YouTube. We're live on Rumble, and yeah, and I have with me amazing Robert Stanley. Robert is a legend in the UFO and conspiracy research community. He's the author of Close Encounters on Capitol Hill and Covert Encounters in Washington, D.C., and the founder and editor of Unicus Magazine. Robert has served as a correspondent for America's Morning News and America's Radio News Network, and his work has appeared across print, radio, TV, and online platforms worldwide. He's a global traveler also. He's traveled to 50 countries. Robert has spent more than 40 years exploring the frontiers of human consciousness, hidden history, and extraterrestrial contact. And his website is robertstanley.substack.com. And I'd like to give him a big warm welcome back to the show. Robert, thanks so much for coming back on. How are you?
I'm doing well, Rob. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, it's great to see you, and like I told you, I think last time we talked, I had a really bad entity attachment, which is, I finally got rid of it, and it's like I feel a lot better, and
Of course.
what I found out is I think these things can these parasites can leach onto us at any time, even, and I think we have to do clearings upon clearings, or it's almost like maybe especially in today's day and age, where the veil is thinning, it seems. You know?
Well, Christians usually call this putting on the armor of God, also known as the armor of light. So it's something that we ask for every day. It's for some reason we have to ask for it on a 24-hour basis. So it's just an energy field that goes around the spiritual body that's more or less related to the soul as opposed to the physical body, although one precedes the other. In other words, this is just a vehicle for me. Okay, for my soul. And we're under assault all the time. And it's the aftermath of the war in heaven, which did not start here, but it will end here. Or I should say it's ending here, but it's not over yet. And that's the problem. That's why we're under assault. Any one of us that is even remotely connected to God is considered an enemy.
Yeah, because this is the final battle. I guess it's spiritual warfare, and they're really bringing the battle. It seems like, but entity targeting and all kinds of stuff. It seems like maybe AI. I know we're going to talk about AI today.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's people think it's something new that we invented. I disagree. It's something it's ancient. Here's the other thing. When people think about God and the angels, we tend to believe that they are primitive, that they don't have technology because we never discuss it, and they never really. It's not made apparent to us. They don't explain it to us. But clearly they do have, God and the angels do have technology. That's where we got it from, because we were created by God and obviously are heavily influenced, both good and bad, by the angels. So, and they're way more advanced than we are technologically. And also they live longer in whatever form they're in. And I do believe they can take physical form. Clearly it says that in Genesis. It also said it in the books of Enoch, which I know is highly controversial for a lot of people, but it's just quite clear that the fallen angels that are in prison here, they are manipulating mankind and have been doing so for thousands of years.
And that's what this spiritual warfare all battles around, the fallen angels and what they're creating here.
Yeah.
As far as do you think they're responsible for the grays and the parasitic entities that people are experiencing and stuff like that? They're behind all of it?
Yes, unfortunately. And they are what most people call the deep state. They think that's just human agencies. No, it isn't. The people that we see and that we think of as the deep state, the shadow government, is an extension of the fallen angels and their organized crime syndicate. So here's the way it was explained to me this year. It's when the war ended, the galaxy was wrecked. the universe, actually all the galaxies were devastated, and including our solar system. And this planet that we call Earth was the home base or the headquarters of the rebellion. And which to me actually makes sense why it would, if it began here, then of course it's going to end here. But most people, I've never heard of this explained before until I met some people this year who explained it to me. And furthermore, when God was sentencing one of his more powerful angels, Lucifer, for the crimes that he had committed and all the mayhem that he was actually orchestrating, he accused God in the court of heaven of being unjust, untruthful, and unloving. Now, this is important because it explains why we are here in this current format, based on what I've been told and what I actually feel is correct at this point, is that we were created for a reason, specifically to prove that God is just, is truthful, and is loving. And that's why we were created in his image, and also why we were put into a position where he knew that we would be tempted and would fall through manipulation by these fallen angels, including obviously Lucifer. But he's not here alone, okay? And this planet, like I said, even though it was devastated during the war, God refurbished it and said, look, you're imprisoned here, and I'm not letting you out. So you can complain all you want, but I'm going to prove that you're wrong. And the reason this is important, Rob, is because the angels that didn't fall or follow Lucifer, when he accused God of being unjust and untruthful and unloving, it cast doubt in the minds of the angels that had not fallen. And God knew that. And so he came up with a plan, a redemption plan, not only for us, because we were put into a position that was, impossible for us to overcome by ourselves, but more importantly, the rest of the angels who are now had doubt, that could not stand. So anyway, we do have a purpose, okay? And a lot of people ask, what's the meaning of life? Well, this is my understanding at this point, 2025, which has been a crash course in Christianity. However, I remain irreligious. I've never been religious. I have no intention of being religious. My pastor is not religious. And I'll say further, God is not religious. God did not create over 4,000 religions on this planet. That serves no purpose other than to confuse or divide and conquer us. Because what I just explained to you, most people have never heard, and there's a reason for it. I've told you this before. In war, the first casualty is always the truth. And I don't have some sort of monopoly on truth. I mean, it just is. And if it sounds right to you, it probably is, but you should also investigate yourself about these, whatever we're discussing here today. In other words, don't take my word for it. However, I'm 65, about to turn 66. I've spent my life, most of my life wondering, questioning, searching, researching what is going on here. Really, it doesn't make any sense. So I, at some point in my life, I started realizing and asking God for help. Help me understand. I need some clarity. Help me understand the context of how we got here, and more importantly, how we are getting out. Okay, so the problem with religion, in my opinion, is there's way too many denominations that promote their own doctrine against each other. So it's completely divided, and they're heavily into dogma. So the 3 Ds is something that I am completely opposed to, and yet I do have a personal relationship with God that only became stronger this year because of a crisis, a health crisis in my family. Okay. And it's interesting, Rob, you may have noticed this. People, typically humans, us, including myself, do not reach out to God unless we are faced with a crisis. If we're
Yeah.
just fat, dumb, and happy, what's the point, right? We're just cruising along. But if you recall, back in September of 1985, when I was being attacked by those spiritual parasites, that's why I went up on the mountain that night and found myself praying, meditating, whatever you want to call it, and reaching out for help. And that's how I met God, but I was not ready to accept having a relationship with him on his terms at that time. It took another 40 years before I was ready to do that, and that's why I'm explaining to you guys today how I came to this awareness. And one of the reasons that Unicus Magazine doesn't exist anymore is because I've moved beyond that. I don't dabble in the occult. I never really was a practitioner, but I was curious and just seeking. But at this point, I know I have a very solid relationship with God, and I do not want to upset him because he is a person. He's a multi-dimensional being. And I accept his terms now to have a relationship with him. So when I speak about things that sound religious, please understand I am not promoting religion. I'm promoting a relationship with God. Okay? Just to be clear.
It's a more spiritual point of view, right?
Yes.
You're talking about like a spirituality perspective, I guess.
Yes. Now, here's the other thing, though. Especially people in the New Age movement, I found, and I'm not one of those people. I'm just all these subjects of UFOs and aliens and AI and all that stuff. It goes into the paranormal. However, by definition, God is supernatural, as are the angels, and the technology that they have. It seems, I mean, we call it supernatural or magic or whatever, but or paranormal, but in fact, it's just stuff that we don't understand. Yet, eventually, I think we will, but the spiritual aspect of it is something that we usually don't get from religion because, like I told you before, they're so wrapped up in their own little promotional, like territorial type of behavior and thinking. It precludes people from having a personal relationship. So sorry if I repeat myself, but it's to me, this is essential. And I've had people come at me, from both sides of the spectrum. Some people that are fundamentalists don't like the fact that I'm not Christian enough for them, which is kind of weird. And then there's other people in the New Age community that they're upset that I'm no longer promoting things like Gnostic beliefs or whatever, or information that I just feel is misleading.
Do you feel like Jesus is like the source then, or do you think he was really like the Son of God?
Okay, so thanks for asking at this point. And it took me a long time to come to this conclusion, okay, because having met him that one night that I was up there out of my body in the mountains, September 21st, 1985, on an equinox, I know he looked like Jesus, but he was so far beyond what I've read or other people have said about him. I couldn't understand it, and it scared me. I was actually very confused and scared and prejudiced because my dad was actually a minister, a pagan minister. He wore a crucifix, but he wasn't a Christian. He didn't believe. He thought that Jesus was another saint. Okay, since you asked, this is my understanding, and I'm just telling you, this is me. The way it's been explained to me is that God is multidimensional. So we typically break it down, and this is oversimplifying in my opinion, but God the Father is omniscient, meaning he knows everything. God the Son, who we call Jesus, Yeshua, whatever, the Son, is omnipotent, meaning all powerful. Even though he took a human body temporarily, he was being guided by his Father. And more importantly, he was being supported. The miracles, the signs and wonders and the miracles that he performed? He was using the energy field that I've told you about before, called the scientists call it the cosmic web of light. Christians call it the Holy Spirit or the Holy Ghost. It is omnipresent, meaning it's everywhere all the time. So this is who This is what, more importantly, I should say more accurately, this is who created us for a reason. None of this is by accident. So one thing that Einstein said that he probably was just being sarcastic, but one thing that he said that I agree with is God doesn't play dice. He does have a sense of humor, and I'm grateful for that. But he also has he's merciful. However, okay, so this is a circle back. What I was saying about New Age people, a lot of New Agers, spiritual minded people, that's great. But the bottom line is this: there's rules. God has rules because, like any parent, they have to discipline their children. Otherwise, they're going to grow up to be completely unruly or rambunctious, whatever. It's going to be a problem. And who's responsible for that? We are as parents. Okay, so God is our Father, and when He told me He was my Father, I went into a shock because I didn't want to be judged by other people, because I thought at that point in my life at age 25, I really believed that only crazy people see God, or worse yet, actually talking to God. You got to be nuts. That doesn't happen. At least it doesn't happen in modern times. And the people who claim it, a lot of people, really, they are nuts. They say, God told me to do this or that. It's usually not good. And as a matter of fact, I'll just be blunt with you. Anybody who says that they're doing something because God told them to, if it isn't lawful and loving, it isn't coming from God Almighty. It's coming from the other side of the equation.
Yeah, and they have ways to trick us into this, right?
Yes, they're masterful manipulators.
Yeah, and one of the things you wanted to talk about today is aliens. Like, do you feel like all the aliens are forms of, like, they're from the fallen angels, or do you feel like some of them are helpful to us, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so let's step back again. What our ancestors called angels, we are now calling aliens, which just means foreigner. And there's some truth to that. And some of people are saying they're interdimensional or extra dimensional. And there's some truth to that as well. Because, as I said, God is a multidimensional being. There's different aspects or emanations of Him. But he is one person, one being that has multidimensional aspects. So the same is true on some level for the angels, because He created them first, and they can be physical and spiritual, or spirit at the same time, or back and forth. They can shift back and forth between dimensions or realities, however you want to look at it. We have that ability, but at a very small scale. I mean, that's what happened to me and other people. A lot of people have experienced. They say, they died, they went to heaven, out of body, they're near death, out of body, same thing, very similar. I mean, supposedly, though, there's a distinction. What I've been told is that angels do not have a soul. They have a spirit, but they do not have a soul. And that's why it's claimed that we are in the image of God. When it says we are made in the image of God, that means that we have a triune nature. So okay, to answer your question, yes, I didn't believe that Jesus was God up until recently. And even then, I still had a long ways to go. When I first started allowing myself to even believe that was possible, up until this year, 2025, I did not understand how that was possible, or why it even happened. Okay, so here's the deal. When our ancestors were created specifically for what I told you before about proving that God is just and truthful and loving. He knew that let's just call them Adam and Eve, were going to fall. They were going to be tempted, tricked, manipulated, whatever. They were going to fall. And that set in motion basically a curse. You could call it sin, but there's a curse that means that all of us that were born after that physically are our spirit, which is not the soul. The spirit is like, so you're using a modem to connect to the internet. right? The spirit
Yeah.
is like a modem that allows us to connect to the cosmic web of light, or the Holy Spirit. And until we literally accept the redemption plan, the salvation that was provided for us through the sacrifice that Jesus, God, made for us, not just for us, but he did it for us specifically, but it had an impact throughout all of creation. When the rest of creation, the angels, saw what God did, that proved right there that he was what he was accused of was false. All right. So the war, here's the deal. The war will end here at some point in the future. I don't know if I'll be here or you'll be here, but that's not the point. We were offered a redemption plan so that we would not end up going into eternal punishment for the let's just call them crimes. I don't know what else to call it. You call them sin, but that's it's not just bad behavior. It's the let's put it this way: the consequences for going against the rules that God set up. The first one was really simple: don't eat that tree. It may not even been a tree. Okay, we don't even know, because there's so much that isn't available to us. I mean, so much information that has been intentionally left out or distorted over time. We don't know for sure. All we know is it was something to do with knowledge. Well, now we have all the knowledge of good and evil you can imagine, right? It's available to us at our fingertips through these stupid phones, right? Affecting our cells, the cell phone, literally with the blue light. It's constantly adulterating us. So, and I'm not immune to it. Okay, I spend way too much time on that stupid phone. But the bottom line is, Rob, we have the ability to accept a gift. Salvation is, and that's actually that's the name of my my podcast, is the Salvation Report. Ever since I was saved, baptized, and delivered of demons possessing me this year, in March of this year, I knew I had to make some. I was a different person. I saw things differently, and I had to make some changes. So even though I let go of a lot of things, and I know we discussed this before, but for people who are new to this conversation, I let go of a lot of things in my life, but I gained a lot of things. So you could say I was cursed. I was living in Satan's kingdom, and then I became blessed only because I accepted the gift of salvation. And it's a gift of, they call it grace. It's grace. He's giving us a grace period. Like, here, I forgive you, but you need to forgive yourself, and you need to just be forgiving in general, and accept this gift that only I can give you, so that you'll have an eternal life or future in my kingdom. Now, I'm speaking for God, obviously, or because we have free will. And that was the other thing. When God was being accused of being unjust, part of the accusation was, you didn't give us free will. We're not free to do whatever we want. You got all these rules. You got all these commandments and statutes and ordinances, and you know what I mean? So from their perspective, from the Satanists, the dark side, they're thinking, and I understand it, I just don't agree with it. They feel justified that God wasn't telling the truth when he said you have free will. So, but we do, but it's just like this: when you get in your car and you drive, you can go wherever you want pretty much, right? Unless it's restricted. Like, I live near Mar-a-Lago. You can't go anywhere near that place now. But the bottom line is, in order to drive on the road, you need to have a license. You need to follow the rules. Otherwise, you're going to be penalized and maybe even put in jail if you're driving reckless or drunk or something. The same thing is true for God's kingdom. There's a lot of laws, and they're immutable. In other words, if you look at the judicial system that we have, you hear people a lot of times in Washington, D.C. going, "Oh, nobody's above the law." Really? Have you looked lately? Of course they are. They know how to cheat the system all day long. So, but you can't do that with God. We can't do that with God. As far as I know, you can't do that and if you think you're getting away with it, you're wrong. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And like you said, these laws are immutable. It's like God or whoever, the Great Spirit, like He wants us to be a certain way. I guess He wants us to be purified. Is that kind of because I guess the Christians have something. There is like something like such as sin, right? Like and like
Yeah,
you know everybody's kind of prone to it here.
of
But
course.
does God want us like purified? Would you say like?
Yeah, it's called sanctification. It means to be sacred. Holy means to be set apart. But again, it's not about God doesn't live in a book. All right. God doesn't live in a church. God is everywhere, but God specifically is in especially with people once you're saved, once anyone accepts that God actually exists and loves us and you want to have a relationship with him, then the dialogue begins and your life will change. Again, it has nothing to do with religion unless you want it to be. If you would just want to be part of a country club, then go ahead, be religious. But here's the thing. God loves us, all right? Just like you love, I don't know, do you have kids?
No, I don't have any kids.
All right. So I have one son. I love him dearly. Do we disagree on everything? No. It would be kind of weird if we did, but because that wasn't how I was raised. I didn't get along too well with my father, and I always knew he was fake. I really did, and aside from the ministry thing, he had an affected way of behavior, like sales. He was really good at selling people on his personal thing that he did was art. He paint pictures and he would sell them, and he was really good at just schmoozing people because he wanted to make money. Now, okay, I get that up to a point, but it's like it. I strive to be authentic. I don't have any weird agenda and a hidden agenda. I just want to communicate clearly and hopefully help some people along the way. My dad was not like that at all. So there was this schism between us, and but he did discipline me, and I'm glad he did because I was a handful growing up back in the 60s and 70s. I got into a lot of trouble. Anyway.
But that's like a part of growing, right? Would you say? Like that's
Yeah, of course it is.
very-
Of course it is. But sometimes I had to learn the hard way. I'm still am. Like I said, this year, if God hadn't humbled me and given me another chance, probably the last chance that I would have in this life to accept having a relationship with him on his terms, not mine, Because look, I didn't create myself. I didn't create this planet. I didn't create this universe. I'm pretty good at making a mess of things. Sometimes I get, I can be very clever, but the bottom line is I have every reason to be grateful for the blessings that he gives all of us, whether we recognize it or not. And I realize too that like any other relationship, if you don't work at it, it's not going to happen. Okay. And again, this is why I don't like having intermediaries like priests or whatever, telling me how I should, how I should behave or think in order to have a relationship with God. I'm reading the Bible. I really don't like it, Rob. I tell you the truth. I really find it very offensive. It's not well written. And God is way more intelligent than that, in my opinion. But
so, I got a question: is the Bible based on the false god or like the god of the archons? Would you say?
That's what some people say. I don't agree with that. I just think that it's like anything else. Whatever happened in the Garden of Eden and with the Exodus from Egypt and all of those things. I mean, there's a lot of history there. but is it accurate? Well, like the game of telephone, the further you
Yeah.
get away. Well, that's what I think of. And more importantly, the the it's been, every one of those stories has been translated and retranslated and still being translated. Like, so when I went to get a Bible this year, there's like so many different kinds. And so my pastor, I do have a pastor now, and I bought my first Bible. He said, get the King James Version, period. Don't mess around with anything else because they've all been manipulated. Okay, well, it turns out in what I found out later, King James Version was shortly after it was published in something like 1619 or something like it, way back in there. A portion of it was taken out. It's called the Apocrypha for whatever reason, okay? And some people argue, well, God felt that it wasn't supposed to be in there. Well, really, then if God was writing the Bible through men, then why did he allow it in the first place? Why not just block it? You know what I mean? There's a lot of illogical stuff that goes on. I mean, you're familiar with the 10 Commandments, right?
Yeah.
Okay, there's actually over 600. There's not 10. They just call them something else. They call them statutes and ordinances and laws. They just call them laws. And the bottom line is this. To me, it sounds kind of hypocritical. Thou shalt not kill unless God tells you to. Because you read the Old Testament, there's a lot of killing going on there.
Yeah, there is.
Okay, but most of it is. Have you read it?
I've read certain parts, and I've heard about certain parts.
Yeah, that's how I used to be. So anyway, I'm reading. It's part of my process this year is to read a little bit every night. Okay, and try to understand it. It doesn't mean I have to agree with it, because, like I said, logically, does that make sense? Don't kill until I say you do, because those are my enemies. Okay, all right. But the problem is that the people there's so-called prophets that are saying, God told me to tell you to do such and such. And a lot of times it was, go and kill so-and-so, right? Sorry. So I'm sorry, it's not funny, but it's a little ironic, to say the least, or hypocritical. And again, I think this is really because our understanding or misunderstanding of what does God really want us to do is here's the thing. We're not here by ourselves. We're on a battlefield, on a prison planet, being manipulated behind the scenes by the adversary. That's what Satan means, the adversary. And all his minions, all these fallen angels, they're here. They're clearly here. And did you ever see the ancient ruins I found in Malibu?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know a lot of people always ask about that.
Okay, well, yeah, and a lot of people ignore it too because it's an inconvenient discovery. And what my conclusion is, after all these years of studying that place, is that it is the remnant or the ruins of a city that the fallen angels built long ago. And God destroyed it, or I should say God's angels destroyed it during the war in heaven. And that's why nobody really wants to talk about it. It's verboten or forbidden. Depends how you want to look at it.
I take it small. Let me see if I can get this to work. I'm supposed to do these Rumble ads. Like I'm not. I don't only do them. It only takes a second.
That's fine. Don't worry about it.
Work here.
I didn't know. I didn't realize. So is this are you using Rumble right now, specifically Rumble Studio? I didn't realize that you could actually do multiple streams from there.
Yeah, like I didn't know that. I don't know why this isn't playing. It's not supposed to. It's not. It's supposed to. I don't know why this is playing. It's supposed to be playing an ad right now, but it's not. I don't know what it's doing. It's not working. And
Well,
I don't know.
see, so
Yeah,
yeah, look,
let
I'm
me
not
see if I can
surprised.
do that. I can cancel this.
All right, technology is great when it works, but I know last show I was recording, I use Restream, and in the
Yeah,
something was hacking into my computer, probably AI, and it literally switched the settings on my system preferences internal into the computer, and and so my audio went nuts. It's like all I could hear was distortion every time I talk into my microphone. So, and it took me
yeah.
a while to figure out what was going on there.
Yeah,
Anyway,
so what it is I'm in the Rumble Creator Program. Okay, I got one of them
oh,
to work. It says, guys, if you haven't already, make sure you download the Rumble app. It's pretty simple to use and the best way to stay connected to the content you want. Once you got it, search for it, hit the channel, hit follow. That way, you'll get a notification every time I go live, and you can grab it now using the link in the description. And Rumble's taking off, guys. I just want to say,
all right.
Rumble supports creators like me because it's free speech, and just search for Rumble, follow the channel, and be a part of the action. And also get Rumble Premium, guys, because Rumble Premium is like you don't get any ads that way. I think it's
Yeah.
like $10 a month, and so you can download the Rumble app, and there we go. And it's as simple as that. But do you like Restream better, Robert? Do you find Restream better than StreamYard, or like? But this
I've
Rumble
had
Studio is really cool, also. I
Yeah,
don't know
I
if you
didn't even
ever.
know this existed. Actually, the Rumble Studio, it does look pretty good. Maybe I'll go over there sometime. Right now, Restream's working for me most of the time, but yeah, I like Restream a little better than StreamYard. And I know there's a lot of different platform apps, whatever that you can use to go out multiple whatever. But I need something that I can integrate pretty simply with Substack, because that's the only place that I really post a lot of content. And once I do that, then it goes out to YouTube and Spotify and wherever. I don't know. It's here's the thing, Rob. I could do 5 shows a week. However, my I told you I'm dealing with a health crisis with my family. So there's that comes first. My family comes first. This is fun. I enjoy it. Hopefully, I'm helping some people, but I really have to focus on other things right now. And hopefully, it's all going to resolve itself. Uh, I'm not complaining. I just want people to know. I want you to know. I appreciate you inviting me on, but I have to limit the amount of time that I actually do social media, so that I can actually live, uh, you know, take care of my family.
Yeah, I hope it all gets worked out.
Yeah.
I really do. Like one thing that I always loved was I always liked coming to Unicus Magazine. I used to come to your website all the time. I used to watch you on. I think I told you this. I used to watch you
Yeah.
on Leak Project, and then I would
Oh,
come to your
right.
website, and
Yeah.
I would always check out the free books that you posted on Unicus. That was so cool.
Yeah. Well,
You
I
know?
do have some free books posted on articles or reports. Actually, I think they're more reports that I'm doing on Substack. So for anybody who's listening and doesn't see the crawl down below there, it's robertstanley.substack.com. And you don't have to subscribe. I don't put stuff behind a paywall because I think it really limits the ability to share stuff. And most everybody's doing free stuff anyway, which is fine. It's good. Of course, you can donate if you want to, which I appreciate. However, that's not how I make a living. This is more of a hobby or an uh, avocation. But here's the thing: I consider it a privilege and a pleasure to be of service to God, and that's really where I'm coming from. Again, it's not religious. It just I feel compelled to help others because we are in such a, a really bad way here on this world, and whatever we can do to help each other, I think we should, as much as possible.
I agree. I agree. One thing that you wanted to talk about, and here I'll put this up on the screen.
All right.
It's not what is it letting me? It won't let me. It usually lets me put the comment up on the screen.
All right.
One thing you wanted to talk about is the digital money, and
Yeah.
that goes along. I had David Icke's son on, and David Icke's son talked about the digital ID.
Oh,
It
really?
seems like they're trying to. the digital ID big over in the UK
They're
and
starting to.
possibly here.
Yes.
What do you think is up with this? Like, and you think it's the mark of the beast or something like that?
Yes, absolutely. But again, this is open to interpretation. However, the way it was explained to me this year was, or is, that we are moving towards the end times, meaning that the end of the war in heaven, it ends here. However, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And then it's in the book of Revelation, again, which a lot of people just interpret it whichever way they want. And I understand that. You're free to do that. But we can't all be right about it. It's like, there's only really one path forward. And I've read a lot of different perspectives on this, but here's the bottom line from what I believe. It is technology that we don't understand. It's only now being revealed to us that there is this fallen angel technology, which they brought down from heaven originally. They used it during the war, and they're still using it because they're imprisoned here. But the bottom line is that kind of surveillance and censorship and manipulation, we are seeing it. It's clearly out in the open now, and we're starting to understand how it works, but not fully. But there's the intent behind it is to draw as many souls as possible into an allegiance or an alliance with the satanic side of the equation. And the reason being, now, I don't know if this is true, but this is what my pastor told me from his perspective. And he's had over 50 years experience. He's 80 now. So I'm just saying it doesn't mean he's perfect, but this is what he told me. He feels that Satan, Lucifer, is somehow going to change God's mind about the punishment, the final punishment, that some people call it hell and then the lake of fire, which is not a lake. It's a supermax prison where these beings who are immortal, spiritually immortal, are going to be imprisoned forever because they can't be destroyed. God created them immortal, but they've become so corrosive or corrupt and so disruptive to all of creation that they have to be dealt with. So, in other words, there's this grace period right now where people are making the choice. You either go towards the dark side and suffer the consequences, or you reach out and have a relationship with God. Okay, and to me, it's a no-brainer. But again, God really did give us free will. We can make this incredibly important decision on our own. In fact, ultimately, it has to be a personal choice. Otherwise, it's not valid. And God knows our hearts. He knows our minds. He created us. So there's no way. Again, this is why his laws are immutable, because you can't con him. You could try, but you're just fooling yourself. He knows. He knows. And that's the other thing. People have this weird illusion that we have privacy. And I'm sorry to tell you, it's just not, that's not true. It's not reality. Both the God and all his angels of light, they're watching us. They're watching everything we do. And so are the fallen angels. Absolutely. And they're always looking for a way to manipulate us. And they're really good at it. They've had plenty of practice. And they know our weaknesses and they know our strengths. And actually, they do tend to prey on people that are weak or weaker. Just like any predator, they do pick on the weakest of the herd first. It's just easier. Why not?
That's a good point. Someone going back to this digital ID and digital money and stuff.
Yes.
Someone told me, I had a woman come on my show. She's her name's Amanda General Hart. She was saying that they're opening these data centers everywhere too.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw this. Like, it's a really weird thing. Like, I don't know what the purpose of them is. It seems like it's to collect our data, and surveil and censor and like all this stuff. It's crazy.
It is. Well, it's criminally insane. is what it is. But there's a purpose. There's a method to their madness, and the data is being fed into the so-called AI systems for surveillance and censorship and ultimately manipulation. Because I'm sorry to tell you that they do have technology that can read our minds, because our minds emit brain waves. That's not a theory. There's waves of energy coming off of your brain all the time, and it can be intercepted, and then it can also be manipulated from a distance remotely. And especially now that they've introduced nanotechnology through various means, not just injectables, but edibles and breathing it in. I mean, it's also nefarious and very sophisticated, but purposeful. None of this happened by accident, okay? So yes, the digital money is just another step towards them controlling us as much as possible prior to the time where they're going to be crushed. That's the thing that they don't want us to focus on. However you want to look at it, when the final, their grand finale is that they're going to get completely crushed permanently, and they'll be at the peak of their power here on this planet once again, showing their complete dominance out in the open through advanced technologies, including the finance, including medical, including judicial. The judicial is all going to go towards AI, by the way.
Yeah,
You know, and
that's scary. That's scary because like
it
if the
is.
AI is making judicial decisions,
Well,
that's
yeah.
really scary.
Well, yeah, especially when they're going to show you your brainwave map and say, "Look, we know that you talk about pre-crime. What was that? What was that? Tom Cruise movie? You know, he was the cop or detective. They were arresting people before they commit the crimes.
Is it enemy of the state or no?
No, that was a
Maybe
different.
not.
Anyway, the bottom line is that they do have technology that can they can know in advance, and if they can record that and use it in a court of law and tie it to, you know, okay, let me put it another way. Social credit score, we know that exists. Take that to the next logical step. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, thank you, Minority Report. Thank you. You guys are on top of it. Thank you. People don't know. I'm seeing this in the chat. Thank you, folks. Yeah, I don't really like Hollywood movies, and it's gotten worse. It really, in my opinion, it's gotten worse. That's why a lot of people are turning away from it. I grew up in that town. Malibu is a sister city to Hollywood. I mean, Hollywood actually built modern Malibu. So there's stupidly rich people there. More dollars than cents, and they don't even realize they're living in a truly a cursed location. So it's not just the fires, it's and the floods. It's much deeper than that.
Wow, that's that's a really good point. Yeah, and then I was going to ask you, like, if someone resists the digital ID, digital money era, do you think they'll have real world like problems or real world
Yes.
option, like real world, you know, like what do
Yes.
you think they'll do? Like,
It'll be an underground economy, what they call the black market, and people will have to go to barter, I guess. I mean, I don't know how else they're going to survive.
yeah,
You know, and some people are just going to have to bug out, but I don't know how far you're going to be able to go when their surveillance systems are complete now. And I mean, global, and we
yeah,
have no earthly idea what's going on underground in the underground cities. And most of them are ancient. When they said that they made all that stuff, I don't believe that for a second. It's been there for it's been there for, well, I mean, we didn't build it, is what I'm trying to say. The fallen angels built all kinds of stuff, not only under the ground but under the ocean. So how are they being imprisoned here? Okay, so there's an article I came across in 2000, and I think it was 14. I should have sent it to you, but I'll send it to you later. You can put the link up if you want. See if I can get a shot of this.
what is that?
Star Trek-like invisible shield found thousands of miles above Earth. So, and that's That's just a graphic of what it looks like, but they don't understand what it is. Okay, it's not the Van Allen radiation belts that so many people talk about. It's something else. So approximately 7,200 miles up, there is this energy field around the planet, and they call it a shield. I call it the fence. It's a fence. It's an energy fence that is keeping the fallen angels from leaving. If they try to leave, they will literally be committing suicide, and they know it. They know it. So I'm just saying, there's a lot more going on here than most people realize. And I don't have all the answers, but I spend most of my time working on the quarantine. Yeah, you could say that. That's actually good because they're highly infectious, because everywhere they go, they don't respect other people's free will. They're constantly trying to manipulate. This is why I really don't like terms like influencer. It's another word for manipulator.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, seriously. And the content, most of the content that I'm seeing out there, a lot of it's generated by AI, but most of it generally is highly manipulative. Even the headlines, or whatever you call the tag lines or whatever, a lot of times it has nothing to do with the content. It's just bait, clickbait. It's just trying to get you to watch. And then you're like, well, I thought I was going to see something, and then no, it's not there. It just dragged you out to, I think it is highly, highly provocative in the sense that they're trying to get us to react emotionally. Remember, I told you this about these attachments or spiritual parasites. They feed off of negative energy that our DNA emits when we're harming ourselves or others. And believe it or not, emotions, simple emotions like anger and fear and greed and all that is feeding them, energizing them. And actually, that's the biggest thing when it comes to AI or artificial life forms, also known as synthetic biology, because that's where it's headed. Excuse me. It's not going to stop with just a program in the computer. Eventually, it's going to go to androids, and that's what the Greys are. They're androids, biological androids that are connected to a hive mind or / like an internet, like the Borg, and they do want to assimilate us. Obviously, they it's crazy. They think they consider us to be their property, according to Charles Fort, which I know is wrong. But they, I mean, just because somebody believes something doesn't make it right or correct, I should say. But
yeah.
You can't stop them because they have the freedom to believe whatever they want, whether it's real or not.
Wow.
Anyway, I'm really glad you're. What? I was going to say, I'm really glad you're feeling better.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I mean, because I know what it's like, and I also know a lot of people are suffering from it, and they don't even realize it. Because that's how parasites work. They're very insidious. The way that they latch onto us, physically or spiritually. I mean, look, most people, I'm sorry to be disgusting about this, but most of us, including myself, have parasites internally, physical parasites, okay? And it causes a psychological imbalance as well as health. So it's mental and physical, right? And this is true for not just parasites, but the bacteria, what they call the microbiome in our gut. I've learned a lot about that. And I've found that health, physically and mentally, health begins in the gut, based on a symbiotic relationship with what we're calling either beneficial bacteria or harmful bacteria. And most of the food, air, and water is designed to proliferate. Yeah, parasites. Most of the food, air, and water that we have here, especially in America, is designed to increase the amount of bad, harmful bacteria internally that then causes external problems, such as what they call anger management issues or mental health problems. A lot of that is directly connected to a lack of our hormone imbalance from not having a proper what do you call beneficial bacteria.
Yeah.
It's not that it's not complicated. See, that's the other thing. In the Bible, it says that my people perish for a lack of knowledge. Well, yeah, because this is not technical stuff. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand this conversation. You just need a little courage and a little patience, because a lot of this stuff, honestly, it's time consuming. It's also a little tedious, but it's also scary. Some people just tune out. They're like, no, I think they call that cognitive dissonance. We just don't want to deal with it. So, so we just tune out.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. And what do you see as the final stages? Like, do you think this will be happening in our lifetime? Like this final like showdown, like Armageddon or whatever it is what we're going to be dealing with?
Yeah, well, you're talking the final battle. It's not going to be. There'll be humans involved, but all the angels, sometimes referred to as gods or aliens, whatever, extra dimensional beings, they will be here. An entire army of them has been predicted or prophesied that they would show up, and that God was going to lead them to this final battle, this final destruction, and which will end the war in heaven. But there's the final judgment phase. So part of being just is to to offer clemency to those that are willing to repent and ask for forgiveness. In other words, to say, sorry, I screwed up. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to do this. Please forgive me. Or you can suffer the consequences, but you can't blame anybody else except yourself because you chose to do that. All right. So this is the final phase. That will be the final phase. And it's going to take time, but here's the thing. Apparently, God lives on a very different timeline than we do, as do the angels. So the way it was written in the Bible, somebody said, 1 year for God is like 1,000 years for us humans on the way we currently live, which makes sense to me. So, but if you're an immortal being, I don't know. I don't see where that really even that's not even a factor,
Yeah.
The clock's not really ticking at that point. You're living, you're just getting things done. You have to follow the list of the agenda that you got to finalize. So nobody knows for sure, although a lot of people have said they do. And this thing about people actually supposedly getting lifted out, airlifted out of here, raptured out, that's not biblical. To me, it seems very diabolical, and it's a lot of people use it as an excuse or a crutch to essentially be spiritually lazy and not prepare for this or do anything to be prepared and help others through these very trying times and trials and tribulations. That's putting it mildly. As you can see, I mean, come on, anybody with a brain, if you spend some time looking at the world news, it's not getting better. We are not getting better. All the technology, all the information by itself doesn't equate to higher intelligence, a higher emotional quotient. In other words, intelligence quotient is one thing. Emotional quotient is another thing. What is your level of emotional maturity? And we're not very mature, right? So, look, and here's the other thing that kind of bugs me. If religion was the answer, I think we would have already figured it out by now. If anything, it's actually being used as a wedge to keep us divided.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Yeah, that seems like the whole goal is to keep us divided, right? They do it with politics, religion, anything they can, race, sex, like, and
Yes.
then they do it very like systematic, and they do it like very, twist, in ways that we can't see it at first, but like, once you like kind of pierce through the veil, you see that it actually is being, it's all manipulation, and it's all like, yeah,
And,
is that what you mean?
yes, and it's also becoming more apparent. It's out transparent. It's out in the open. They're not hiding it anymore. This violence. If they can't have their way, they just threaten or actually kill people, or could just commit violence, like what they did with the Teslas, and I mean, it's just endless. But here's the thing, this is why it has to be resolved. And I don't think that humans can resolve the problem. I've been wondering about this for a long time, and essentially, we had to be warned, and we had to make a choice. And at this point, if you haven't made a choice yet, I don't know what to tell you, because all the information's there. It's so obvious. It's so blatant. Pick a side. You can't be neutral in a war. You can't. I know a lot of people wish they could be, but it doesn't work like that. So if you're here, you're watching this, and you're thinking about it, then you're a participant. You're a combatant. Maybe not kinetically, but spiritually. You mentioned before, people talk about spiritual warfare. It's way more intense than most people ever realize. All right. And it's not just spiritual. The spirit is what animates us. So that has a direct effect and impact on your physical being. Okay. You know that. I know that. Some people are learning the hard way still. That's part of our reality. And that's why a lot of people, especially Christians, don't want to take on they're scared to take on directly deal with the implications that God is supernatural. The angels, both holy angels and the fallen angels, are supernatural. They have advanced technologies, including artificial intelligences or artificial life forms that are subservient to them. And we are kind of in the middle, but it was never an accident. This is not an experiment. This is a process, and it is legal, and it is binding, and more importantly, it's permanent. Once this is over, it's never going to be repeated. This, in fact, not only this planet, but my understanding is this entire universe will be deleted, and a new heaven and a new universe with a new Earth-like planet, home base, will have been created. If it hasn't already been created, it's possible it's already there. I don't know, because God doesn't explain these things to me. I just know if it's possible, He can certainly do it.
Yeah. Anchor Haven says great guest, and guys, Robert's a legend. He's been doing the best podcast for a long time. Since before I even had a podcast, he was I used to watch Robert on Leak Project. I told you guys this before. I used to watch Robert on Leak Project back in the day, and he was always some of your shows with Rex Bear was like some of the stuff that like motivated me to like do a show. You know what I mean? It kind of opened me up to like where I was like, I want to do something like this, and it was amazing. Remember when you first thought it was Anki that you saw?
Yeah.
Do you think that was now Jesus, or was Anki, or was it like a form of God? You think?
Okay, good question. Thank you, Rob. So at the time, yeah, I did. But I also said that I may wake up tomorrow and change my mind, and if I do, I'll tell everybody. Okay, because I wasn't sure. I was going through a process of evaluation based on information that I was seeing, like Wes Penray's stuff, which I completely disregard. But the bottom line is this: when I left my body, my soul was in a realm of light. That's what I told you before. That is what scientists call the cosmic web of light, or the Holy Spirit. That's the first level. All right. And then from there, when I was there, I saw something approach me and interface with me literally face to face, and it looked like Jesus. So that would be the Son, the Holy Spirit, the Son. And then, but the thing about him was the light coming off of him was greater than the light that we were in. And my question was, to myself, who is this? And he said, I am your Father. Or he said, I am the Father. I don't know for sure. All I know is he was saying, I'm God. And I'm like, what? No. 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 I didn't disagree with him. I was so uncomfortable with that. Really. And I mean, for decades, I struggled with it. So thanks for bringing it up, because, yeah, it's something that took me literally decades to come to that, to accept the fact that, yes, I met God, all three levels of the Holy Spirit, the Son, and the Father. That's God. So it hasn't, these so-called gods, little g gods, like Enki, they have tried to insinuate themselves on us as though that they created us. Maybe physically they tampered with the DNA. That's possible, especially when you look at the giants. Are you familiar with that whole story in Genesis?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And it's also in the book of Enoch, or the books of Enoch. But anyway, there is no way. I mean, we're genetically compatible with the angels, obviously, but there's no way that a giant, even if he's only 8 feet tall, can be born from a woman that's 5 feet tall. It will kill her trying to give birth to it, let alone somebody that's 12 feet tall or higher. There's no way. So that there's genetic manipulation going on there. And maybe they were artificially inseminated, much like what's going on now with alien abductions and hybrids.
Yeah.
Because the word Nephilim, however you want to say it, it literally, it can be giants, but it also means fallen ones. So I would have to say it's both, because by the way, giants are mentioned in the Bible, which more than once. The Nephilim were on the earth prior to and even after the flood. And that's mentioned in the Old Testament, which is weird because obviously they knew it and they were dealing with it. One of them actually had 6 fingers and 6 toes. So they clearly existed. The question is, do they still exist? So there's a book, I can't seem to find a good link to it, unfortunately, but there is a book written by a guy that spent a lot of time in the Solomon Islands. And there is some weird, really weird, I feel is factual stuff that is going on in the Solomon Islands, which is basically in kind of nowhere. As far as our civilization is concerned, most people don't even know where it is. They don't care. But the natives there have been dealing with giant carnivorous, or I should say cannibalistic humanoids for hundreds of, if not thousands of years. And there are flying saucer type technology that is based there, usually under the water or in the mountains, but it's well documented. And our government and the Australian government obviously knows about it, and they went in there and they tried to take control, or let's just say they managed the situation because they don't want this information coming out. I don't know why, because I'm not part of this secret government, whatever. So, but clearly it's an issue. And giants are known all over the world throughout history. Humans don't procreate like that. So where did they come from? Right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, where's Solomon Island at? Where's that located?
Okay, you know where Australia is?
Yeah.
Go a little bit north of there. It's called first is you come to a place called Micronesia. It's this chain of islands. There's Indonesia, Micronesia, and Melanesia. It's all north
Yeah.
of Australia. And so, yeah. Cannibalism is also mentioned in the Bible. And you and I talked about this, but potentially even as far back as that being the fruit, the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden. But that is not in the Bible. That is extra biblical stuff that some rabbi came up with. But in the Old Testament, it literally talks about during famine, some of the people eating their children, which has happened. It's happened in modern times. I know it's completely horrific. I can't even imagine. I really don't even want to think about it, but it happened. Allegedly, it's happened. And the reason I'm mentioning it is because it's, to me, it's completely ungodly. It's totally satanic, and it's part and parcel of the human trafficking. All those, God knows how many thousands of children came across the border illegally and were disappeared for whatever reason. It's, for child labor or sex trafficking or possibly even adrenochrome or whatever. It's totally satanic. So it's and extremely prevalent, and the money that's being made off of this is obscene for many reasons, but it's just like, I don't see how anybody could possibly sell out to do something like that, but obviously people do. And that's the only reason I'm mentioning it, because it's got to stop. And, no matter how much military and other law enforcement we have on the planet, this is inherent to our nature, not you and me, but I mean to mankind, has been polluted, perverted, or inverted from our original state. And, you can argue all day long about exactly how it happened or why it happened, but it happened. And the only reason I can say that with any certainty is because look at our behavior.
No.
We can't seem to control ourselves, most of us. And I'll tell you this much. One of the things that this year, it's taken me almost a year, I've lost 50 pounds. But I like I told you.
What'd you do?
I did all completely natural. I just did it, changed my diet, more exercise, but I also started intermittent fasting. And then once I started praying more, I realized that prayer and fasting, actual fasting. So like one day, actually it's a 40-hour deal. Let's just say Friday night, I don't eat till Sunday morning, which was this morning. It's great. It takes a lot of discipline not to eat any solid food for 40 hours. Some people can do it for 40 days or more. I don't know how, but they do it. Okay. Just liquids. And it's actually kind of dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. So I don't know. I'm not telling people to do this. I'm just saying I'd read a lot and heard a lot about people fasting and praying. And I'll tell you, here's what for me, it gave me greater control over my appetite or my physical body. I'm in control, more control now of my physical body than I ever was. And I'm healthier than I've ever been in my life, actually, even though I still have some issues. But the bottom line is this: when you suppress the physical, it enhances the spiritual side of your nature. Okay. It just does. And that's why, so your prayers are become more, it's easier to focus on that spiritual connection that we all have. Once we develop a spiritual relationship with God and all his holy angels, it strengthens us, and it also gives us some greater guidance and protection from manipulation by the dark side. Look, man, we all get cravings. We all go get cravings. You know what? You think it's good is it healthy to crave that garbage stuff? No. I mean, I'm living proof of it. I can't believe. I mean, so I have bottles of water here, spring water. It's in a glass container. It weighs 50 pounds. So when I pick that sucker up every few days to put a new one in the dispenser, I'm literally holding as much weight as I used to carry on my body. And it just freaks me out every time, Rob. I'm like, wow, I was carrying that much extra weight that I don't need. Why would I even want to live like that?
Yeah, that's my problem. I got to get back in shape myself. I used to be in really good shape, and like, it's and one of the things that we're finding out, well, it's not even that we're finding out, is that like sugar can really kill people. It's
Yeah,
like
it's poison. Yes.
it's like because it can cause people to lose limbs and sugar diabetes and all
Yeah.
that stuff. Like, sugar is horrible, right? It's like one of the
It is.
worst things.
Yeah, but if look, it's not just that. It's just a lot of stuff, including seed oil, which is toxic. Salt,
Yeah.
apparently, certain salt they claim is one thing, but it's actually it's ground up plastic in there. That's
Wow.
intentional. That's intentional. Okay, I don't want to say the brand because I don't want to get sued, but I was told by a doctor that stay away from this. Here's the best salt you can possibly get. It's dried ocean water, and then they filter it and then they dry it. I was like, man. And he says, because that's closer to your blood. Your blood has certain amounts of minerals in it, and we need that. You call them electrolytes. Well, what does that mean? It means it conducts electricity. Regular water, even though this is clean. And by the way, you never want to put water in plastic if you can avoid it. Because it changes the structure of the water. It's not just microplastic. It literally changes the structure of the water so it doesn't penetrate deep into the cells the way it needs. And anyway, here's the bottom line. We're not talking about something that's super complicated here. It just, even look, they've adulterated the cheese, the bread, the water, the eggs. Do you know, this blows my mind. The eggs in a lot of the stores have been soaked in a chlorine bath.
Jesus,
and
that's horrible.
It does. It weakens the shell, and the shell is porous, by the way, so it gets into the egg. So my wife and I went looking around, and we found local eggs, and the shell may be a little dirty because that's called the bloom. I don't know why they call it that, but there's like a coating when it comes out of the chicken. It's like a mucus, but it dries on there, and it seals the egg, so it's not porous anymore. So when you crack one of those eggs, it's actually, the shell is stronger and the yolk is a dark orange. It's not this pale yellow crap. And it actually has a different consistency. It's more dense. And there's a lot of nutrition in that. It's a super food. It really is. So good salt, good food, water, praying, fasting. These things anybody can do this. But what are people doing? Ozempic, which is toxins. It's a synthesized reptilian toxin.
There's this rapper. I don't want to say his name because I follow a lot of different stuff, and like this rapper, like I think he was taking Ozempic, and he looks like a human lab experiment.
Yeah,
he just looks like his face looks all distorted, and like
yeah.
I don't want to say he is, but like it's like from what he looked like in the '90s, and now it's like holy shit, man! Like that shit is fucked up. Excuse my language.
No,
like,
it's poison.
Really, like it is really like horrible. And that's becoming a thing with the medical. They want to do injections on people. Like for example, like people that have like opiate. I've talked about this on my show. People who have had opiate addictions, they're giving them the injection now. Like they give them the Suboxone to stay off of to stay off drugs, right? But now the injectable, and God knows what's in that injectable. You know what I mean? And I'll have to edit this out for YouTube. But like nanotechnology in that, you know what I mean?
Right.
And all that stuff, which we know is in a lot of other stuff already, right?
So Dr. Brian Ardis has given people a somewhat of an antidote, and that's the nicotine patch. Allegedly it dissolves the nanotech, but so does zeolite. Zeolite.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
So I did a detox as well as this. Dumping all the excess weight. I also did some detoxes for parasites and heavy metals, and here's how ironic life is, right? Unless if one of my family members wasn't in a health crisis, none of this would ever happen to me. I would have continued down the path, just literally fat, dumb, and happy, pursuing my little, whatever you call it, my hobby, my paranormal hobby, as opposed to what happened was a huge transformation. And I feel blessed. I really do, but only because I was cursed, and because I cursed myself, you know. I didn't need to live that way. I chose to live that way. Okay. And I can't blame anybody else. Yeah, they're trying to do this stuff to us, Rob, but ultimately we don't have to participate. And if they force us all into a corner and say, hey, worship the beast and, eat this poison or whatever, I just say, I'll say, I'll pray for you, but you're going to hell and I'm not. And that's how I deal with it now. I mean, there's no reason for me to get violent unless I'm trying to protect myself from my loved ones. But I don't feel this righteous indignation that a lot of religious people. It's very off-putting, and I think it's totally unnecessary because I'm in no position to condemn or judge. Okay, because I know how people get into those positions. I'm telling you, a lot of people don't understand. They think that I'm some kind of spiritual guy, and I thought I was too, but I really wasn't. I was duped. I was deluded, and I apologize for some of the stuff that I put out there was totally incorrect. It was very misleading, but it was unintentional. However, that doesn't excuse it. Okay, this is why I'm still doing social media. In part is to help kind of like clean up the mess that I made, and also to show people what happens, when you do begin to have I consider it to be a healthy relationship with God.
Yeah,
it changes everything.
That's amazing. Yeah, well, this is amazing, Robert. And I just do one more. I got to do one more ad before we go.
Okay, go ahead.
So, guys, we talked about health. I don't know. I haven't tried this stuff yet, but I'll just read the ad, and here we go. And it says, "Hey, there's this video. It's from Chuck Norris. Yeah, he's insane. He's in his 80s, and he still feels like he's in his 50s. Pretty shocking. He had some pretty cool tips here on what he's doing, including the 3 foods that he avoids like the plague. He explained all the things he's doing. Are very simple. It's so easy." You can do it right at home. When I first saw this, I knew I had to share this with y'all. Since it happened to Chuck, it could happen to all you too. The results vary. The video is definitely worth checking out. Watch his method. It's for the product called Morning Kick, guys, and it's supposed to be really good. I heard some good stuff about it, and it's supposedly keeping Chuck Norris young. So check that out. And Robert, this was amazing. Thank you for coming on today.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you. I always.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Like sorry, I don't reach out to you very often because again, I'm kind of involved. Wait a second. Yeah. Okay, seriously.
Well, I had a problem for a while. I know it was probably scary the last time you talked to me, because I know I was like really infected with like parasites and stuff, like astral parasites. It was really bad, Robert. It really was. Like, I didn't know what I was going to do. I just had to go within and I had to fight it off. And I still don't know how completely I did it, but I know that like it happens to, it still happens. And then I can do a clearing and I can do it on myself and clear it off. Or I could have one of my friends do a clearing on me. And, and that's where I still rely somewhat on like psychic healers and stuff, like, because I have a lot of friends who are, but they're able to clear it. But like so I think it's like it's like an ongoing battle that we have to,
yes.
I think, I feel bad for the people who aren't able to perceive it. Like, I feel lucky in my sense that I'm able to perceive it when something attaches to me. Like, but like, think about how many people that don't and aren't able to do that. They're just walking around with like demons every day, and I think it's more prevalent than what we think.
Yes. Since you brought it up, a lot of Christians believe they cannot be possessed because they're saved or perceive themselves to be saved. Because there's a lot of people, people that are just baptized, that is not salvation. It was prior to the crucifixion, but it isn't any longer. Once the crucifixion and resurrection happened, that was our path forward towards salvation. But even if you're saved, like myself, I can still be oppressed. I can't be possessed anymore, but I can be oppressed by, and they try, They try. Believe me, they do. But at least I have the authority now, and I know the method. Like you were saying, it's something you got to work on. You got to protect yourself and work on. When you feel you're being attacked, you tell them, you have no authority here. I'm a sovereign soul. God loves me. God is my protection. You need to leave. I know who you are. I know what you want, and you're not getting it from me. So just leave. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. And I put your Substack up on the
Thanks.
stream, but is it both ways? It's robertstanley.substack.com. Then I guess you can get it too by going
Yeah,
to substack.com
I
at
think.
Robert Stanley.
Yeah, that'll take you to, if you have the app. It's really kind of weird. I don't know. They're always messing around with it, and I really don't know if they censor or not. How much they do over there at Substack. So far, it's been pretty good compared to other places. But I expect things to get worse before it really gets better. I mean, much worse, because they're not going to give up. All right. No matter what, you can see this stupid thing like No Kings, allegedly killing Charlie Kirk. It's like there's just so much going on, right? And they're so committed to their path of death and destruction, manipulation, and lies that it would be foolish to think or even wish that they would just stop. They can't. And from my understanding of it, all right, and that's why there's going to be a final battle, and that's going to put an end to it forever. I mean that. I'm just telling you that's what my understanding is at this point. I don't think I'm going to come back to you in a few months and go, "Oh, I was completely wrong, Rob." I really feel like this is it.
No, this is the final battle.
Yeah, but more importantly, I told you, look, if the first casualty of war is truth, and there's something else called the fog of war, it's really hard to get accurate answers or information. But that's what my goal has been all along. And again, of course, I'm not perfect. I can make mistakes, but I literally devoted my life to understanding this and communicating it to others, because I feel like we're all in this together. I hate that phrase, but it's true. We're all here together. And more importantly, we're all related. Whether we like each other or not is irrelevant. We are related. We're all one family. That's why it bugs me when people say, what race are you? You idiot. I'm a human race. It's not about your skin color or your gender. We're all part of the same family, the human race. So as flawed as we are, here's the thing. All the different laws that I was talking about before, when somebody asked Jesus, what is the most important commandment or law? And he said, is to love God with all your heart and soul, and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. If we were doing that, none of this other stuff would be happening. So clearly we're not there yet, at least collectively. There's not enough of us that have come to that point. But at some point in the future, this is my understanding of God's kingdom, everybody is healthy and happy, and they get along. They're not being forced to love each other. They do it because they feel it, and they follow the rules because they know that the consequences, there's no question in their mind or in their heart. If we follow the rules, we are blessed. So it's not complicated, man. I'm sorry I repeat myself, but I'm still blown away by this, to tell you the truth. I got to be honest with you. I'm absolutely blown away that we're even having this conversation, because a year ago this wouldn't have happened. I would be talking to you about flying saucers and whatever. It's just chasing after flying saucers is actually, to me, a waste of time, because I know they're not. You'd asked me this before. Yes, they're in prison here, but that doesn't mean that the good guys don't come in occasionally. Like there's prison guards here for sure. For sure, there has to be. There's a limit to how much murder and mayhem that they can get away with, even here on this this tiny little speck.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Robert.
Okay, thank you.
Amazing. I hope everything works out with the situation with your family. And
I'll let you know.
Like
yeah, I'll keep you posted. It's It's
Yeah.
fun. It's good. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in today, and thank you, Robert, and I will see everybody soon. And have a good day, everybody.